In the spring of 1900, a boat full of sponge divers was driven off course by a storm and forced to shelter beside a small, barren island in the Aegean Sea. Its name was Antikythera, a speck of rock between Crete and the Greek mainland, home to almost no one. While they waited for the weather to break, one diver went down in his heavy canvas suit and copper helmet to see what was on the bottom. He came back up terrified, babbling about a heap of dead bodies on the seafloor. His captain thought the pressure had unhinged him until he went down himself and brought back a bronze arm. What lay 45 meters below was not a graveyard. It was a shipwreck, more than 2,000 years old, and inside it was an object that, by every rule we thought we understood about history, simply should not exist. The bodies were statues, bronze and marble figures, scattered across the seabed where a Roman cargo ship had gone down sometime around the 1st century before Christ. Over the next year, the Greek government and the sponge divers mounted one of the first major underwater archaeological recoveries in history. It was brutal, dangerous work. The divers went far deeper than was safe, in equipment that barely deserved the name, and they paid for it. 2 were left paralyzed by what we now call the bends, and 1 man died. From the wreck came treasures, life-size statues, glassware, jewelry, luxury goods bound for a wealthy buyer in Rome. All of it went to the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, where scholars began the work of cataloguing a spectacular haul of ancient art. And in the middle of that treasure sat a shapeless lump of corroded bronze and rotted wood, about the size of a large book. For months, almost no one gave it a second look. Then, in 1902, an archaeologist named Valerios Stais was examining the lump when the corrosion split, and he saw something impossible pressed into the green metal: a gear wheel. Precise, hand-cut teeth in bronze, the kind of thing you would expect to find inside a clock. But there were no clocks. There would be no mechanical clocks anywhere on Earth for another 1,400 years. The reaction from most experts was not excitement, it was denial. A geared machine had no business in an ancient Greek shipwreck. It must have fallen in later, they said. It must be a mistake. Faced with an object that contradicted everything they knew, the safest thing to do was to look away. And so, for the better part of a century, the most sophisticated object of the ancient world sat in a museum drawer, quietly refusing to be explained. Here is what they were looking at. The Antikythera Mechanism was a hand-powered model of the heavens, a wooden case about the size of a large book, its faces sheathed in inscribed bronze, packed with at least 30 interlocking bronze gears that you operated by turning a crank on the side. Turn the crank, and everything moved at once. On the front face, pointers swept around a dial marked with the 12 signs of the zodiac and the days of the Egyptian year, showing the position of the sun and the moon against the stars. A little rotating ball, half silver and half black, showed the phase of the moon on any date you chose. On the back were 2 great spiral dials. One tracked a 19-year calendar cycle the Greeks used to keep lunar months and solar years in step. The other did something that still feels like magic. It predicted eclipses, which months, years in advance, the sun or the moon would go dark. But the detail that stops historians cold is smaller than all of that. The ancient Greeks knew the moon does not move across the sky at a constant speed. It runs a little faster when it is closer to Earth, and slower when it is far. To reproduce that, whoever built this machine used a pin and slot arrangement. One gear with a pin sitting slightly off-center on another gear, dragging a third, so that the output speeds up and slows down over the month, exactly as the real moon does. It is a mechanical solution to a subtle astronomical problem, and it would not be reinvented for well over 1,000 years. This was not a toy. It was the physical embodiment of Greek astronomy, the theories of men like Hipparchus turned into bronze and set spinning by a handle. Understanding all of this took generations. The corroded fragments, by now broken into 80-odd pieces, resisted every attempt to read them. The first real breakthrough came from a British-American historian of science named Derek de Solla Price, who spent decades of his life on the machine. In the 1970s, working with a Greek radiographer, Price took X-ray images that let him peer through the corrosion and count the teeth on gears no human eye had seen in 2,000 years. In 1974, he published his findings under a title that captured the shock of it, Gears from the Greeks. He had proven the impossible was real. But the corrosion still hid more than it revealed, and Price died with the machine only half understood. The real turning point came in 2005. A new team, engineers, astronomers, and archaeologists, brought the fragments together with technology the ancient world could never have dreamed of. They shipped an 8-ton X-ray machine to Athens, a scanner built to inspect metal for cracks, and used it to look straight through the bronze. What came back was staggering. Not only could they now map every surviving gear in 3 dimensions, they could read text. Thousands of tiny Greek letters, hidden inside the corrosion, came into focus. Labels, astronomical notes, a kind of instruction manual engraved on the machine itself. The device was, in effect, describing what it did. When the results were published, they rewrote the textbooks. This was not a simple calendar. It was a computer, an analog computer of astonishing sophistication, built by hand before the birth of Christ. So, who made it? The honest answer is that we still do not know. No name is signed to it. The clues point toward the world of Greek astronomy in the 2nd or 1st century before Christ, the school of Hipparchus, the island of Rhodes, thinkers wrestling with the exact motions the machine reproduces. Some have wondered about a connection to Archimedes himself. The Roman writer Cicero described a bronze device built by Archimedes that modeled the movements of the sun, the moon, and the planets, a machine that sounds eerily like this one. But Archimedes had died around 150 years before this ship went down, so at most the mechanism belongs to a tradition he may have helped begin. What is certain is this: it was not a one-off accident of genius. A machine this refined implies others before it, a whole lineage of instruments we have never found, resting, perhaps, on other seabeds we have never searched. And that is the part that should unsettle you. After this ship sank, nothing of remotely comparable complexity appears in the human record for well over 1,000 years. No geared calculators, no mechanical models of the cosmos. The knowledge that produced the Antikythera Mechanism did not advance. It vanished. It would take until the great astronomical clocks of medieval Europe and the geared instruments of the medieval Islamic world before humanity built anything to rival it again. Somewhere between the workshops of ancient Greece and the fall of the classical world, an entire branch of engineering was simply lost, and no one wrote down how to get it back. We tend to imagine history as a steady climb. The Antikythera Mechanism is proof that knowledge can also fall off a cliff. Today, the fragments sit under glass in Athens, and researchers are still arguing about exactly how the front of the machine displayed the planets. The latest reconstructions came out only a few years ago, and even those are educated guesses. Pieces are still missing. Some of them may still be down there, 45 meters under the Aegean, in the dark, in the silt, where a Roman ship spilled its cargo 2,000 years ago. Divers keep going back. If you want to keep staring into mysteries the textbooks skip over, subscribe. we open a new one every week. Because the sea gave up a computer built before the birth of Christ, it makes you wonder what else it is still holding on to.